All right, welcome back to our co-pilot series. Delighted to be joined today by Mick or Michael Dempsey. He's joining us from the Gold Coast. Mick, are you happy if I call you Mick?
Absolutely.
Yeah. For those who haven't met you, are you happy to tell us a little bit about yourself?
A little bit about myself. Yeah, I've got a background as an engineer, so a mechanical engineer. Graduated from engineering, went out, got a few jobs in engineering industry. Ended up doing the 2-year sabbatical I started off in London and then actually got a job in the Middle East. So working on oil and gas pipelines and ended up in a place called Yemen. Not sure if too many are familiar with Yemen, but it's below Saudi. A lot of civil unrest there. Very third world. But anyway, did that. That was a fly in, fly out type arrangement. But in those days, it was like 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and I was in the middle of the desert. So pretty harsh.
Hot work.
Exactly. Pardon?
Hot work.
Yeah, very hot work. Exactly. Anyway, came back to Australia, got a job offer to go to the Kimberleys in similar type of arrangement as an engineer. And then I decided, you know what, this remote work's not for me. And then I went, you know what, this engineering's not really for me. So I think it was about 28, 29, I decided to throw in the engineering.
Yeah.
And another mate of mine was a civil engineer. And so we decided to get together and do just some small part-time, small-time developments. And then so part of that was we built some childcares.
Okay.
And so at that time, the government was incentivizing childcares because, believe it or not, at that time, it was only the beginning of the industry. There weren't many childcares around. And the government would give you 3 months of your forecast revenue the day you open the door. So we always forecast 100%, of course.
Yeah.
You didn't have any money, bootstrap. So anyway, so we get this check with the first day we open the doors, and then we had our own building license, so we built the centers as well. We'd have to then pay the subbies, and then we're always chasing our tail, found ourselves short of cash.
Okay.
And we were building in lower socioeconomic areas because they were probably the only thing we could afford anyway. And we were finding it very difficult to get paid by the parents. I was on the phone constantly ringing people up, we've cared for little Johnny, but you haven't paid us, where's my money? And then like next day, little Johnny be pulled out of the childcare and you've lost a seat and I'd never get my money. So that was how Easy Debit was born. So I'd done just enough coding as an engineer, as a mechanical engineer, and at uni I'd done just enough to know how to write a specification. So I wrote a spec. We got another uni student to write my first application, and that was the birth of Easy Debit.
Yeah.
And then we grew that. Yeah. So then I worked on that, thought it was better than childcare, got rid of the childcares, concentrated on that. But in the meantime, I bought a pub. I had the Normbeer Hotel, I had the Inala Hotel, I had some bakeries. So I had quite a few, my fingers in a few
institutions in Brisbane. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but the main one was the Easy Debit payments application. And we grew that to an exit in late 2014.
Yeah.
And a nice American company gave me some money. And so then I've had to switch the brain from entrepreneur to investor.
Yeah. So just for those who might not know Easy Debit, like when did you start that business? It sounds like it was a few days. Can you just tell us a bit more about that one?
Yeah, so we started out in 99.
All right.
And yeah, it was a fintech, although it wasn't called that back then. It was just simply called a business.
Yeah.
And so we're actually one of the first. We had a SaaS-based application, but it wasn't even called SaaS back then as well. Yeah, look, and that was, I said, we got a student to build the first making of the app. We were processing credit cards with just a little merchant terminal. So we were behind the scenes with a spreadsheet, keying in everyone's numbers and the amount on the day due. So we did that manually until we got to a point where we said we need to automate this somehow. So then we coded a part of an app to automate that. So then that's basically how we worked. So we pretty well never raised capital. I never paid myself, built it from there. It was basically it was a side hustle to start with.
Yeah.
And until it got to a point where it was self-sustainable. And when I say that, that was to pay everyone else's wages, but I never ever drew a wage from it.
Yeah.
So a
And you
little different to these guys today.
yeah, that's it. And you were essentially solving your own pain point you'd found in the childcare system. How easily did it solve it? How were collections for you and the businesses and all your customers?
That was the beauty of it. So it worked, right?
Yeah,
So that it was so yeah, and you're exactly right. So there was a problem. So it was a missionary type business. There was a problem. I thought there was a problem that needed solving. I solved my own problem, and it worked. Like so, not only did I actually get money, but we had better retention because the old Johnny wasn't getting pulled out, and we
yeah,
actually had high level of customer satisfaction because most of the complaints come from people who get behind on the payments and then they need something to complain about to justify why they haven't paid. There was all these factors that resulted in a significantly better business.
yeah,
So I thought, but this is pretty good. And then I just thought, if I'm experiencing this problem, I know there's got to be most childcares out there that are also experiencing the same problem. So then we just rolled out and went really deep and narrow into childcare.
yeah, yeah.
Like we just really stuck to that vertical
Okay.
until we had like 60% of that vertical, and then it just got to a tipping point where everyone just came on board, and then it wasn't really until then that we went to a new vertical, and that was health and fitness, and then we really smashed that vertical as well before we went to another vertical.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And I know we're here to talk about your angel journey, but your history as a founder is like fascinating. Can you talk us through the last few years heading into the exit and what that looked like? Did you see it coming? Were you planning for it?
Now, look, we weren't really planning for it, so it was only that there was some like businesses that had just recently been bought, and it was like, I don't know, 50 to 80 mil that some of them have been bought. I mean, we might have some value here. And then I think we got a couple of knocks on the door, and then we went, oh, this could be. So then we went, oh, we could have something here. And then we had a couple of the merchant makers knocking the door. We had few guys from America came over and took us over to Vegas and partied us up in Vegas, which was pretty good fun. And then we thought, oh, you know what? I think if we put the business on the block, we'd probably get a decent sale, which we did. So we went on what's called a dual track process. So you have a trade sale on one side, and then you're running like in parallel an IPO process. Yeah, but look, you know what? In hindsight, I think we probably sold a little early.
Yeah, okay.
With the benefit of hindsight, I think we probably sold a little bit early. And if we'd probably given it another few years, we probably could have had a far larger exit.
Yeah. Still life-changing though, right?
Well, and that was it. So it was a life-changing event, generational change. And so it was really, for me, it was like, if someone, and we were probably a little bit worried that someone like Google, Apple, and whatnot were going to come into the space and smash everyone, but you know what? They still haven't.
Okay.
But we're worried about that. So we thought, you know what? If something happens and we reject the offer, and then Google, Apple come in and smash us, and I'll be driving to that Gateway Bridge and jumping off. Yeah.
Missed opportunities, yeah. No, bird in the hand sometimes.
And you know what, bird in the hand, and look, and I certainly can't complain. There are no complaints. It's been a really good journey, and life since then has been really good too. So
yeah, good. Back to those early days, you sold in 2014. What did you initially go straight into angel investing and look for other entrepreneurs to back, or what were the next steps on the investing side?
no, look, I certainly didn't. So it's a funny thing when so we just basically got a check from Global Payments, and I just threw them the keys, and it was basically like that. One day I owned the business, the next day I didn't. And then all of a sudden you look in your bank account and you go, geez, look at all that money there. What's that mean? And it does take a bit of time it's a funny thing, because it's still just it's a number in a bank account. But you go, I wonder is that going to stay there? Is it not going to stay there? How sticky is that? And it's very different to running a business, because as an entrepreneur, I'm high risk, I'm high reward. And then with a lump of money, it's more preservation. Yeah. So look, I certainly didn't rush into, I'm not sure what you term angel investing.
Early stage tech, maybe.
Yeah. Because I think our check size being like minimum 150. So I'm not sure if that's what you call angel or not. But yeah, I think I got introduced to it actually through Steve Baxter.
Okay.
And River City Labs. Yeah, so my first investment was actually through River City Labs, and there was I think it was like a little fund, and we threw some money into that, and it's a couple still going. So Punter is still going, and then now
Yep.
called Picklebet, and I think Travelo is still going, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I also threw some money into Holland Healthcare, which was that was one that Steve introduced me to. She'd been on Shark Tank and had some basically like the paddle pop stick that you put down your throat for the sore throat. She'd made that out of Perspex and put an app onto it so you take photos, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay. So you got introduced to it via Steve. And then where did your investing go from there, particularly in the venture space or tech space? Was that a focus for you as you built out a family office?
Nah, so
Then?
it certainly wasn't. So no, the family office, because you're changing your mindset, and it's really preservation of capital. So all of a sudden you need to switch your brain around to a diversified portfolio. So
Yeah.
we've got a range of different asset classes, and the venture capital is probably that's my play bucket. So that's
Yeah.
where I have a bit of fun. The other stuff's boring but necessary, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
definitely. Asset allocation at the big end is important, right? But good to hear you've still got a sleeve for supporting the next generation of founders out there.
absolutely.
Do you have a strategy for how you approach that part of your portfolio?
Should we have a strategy? Yeah, look, it's an evolving strategy.
Yeah.
We've made probably about 15 investments, I'd say. So we've got about 15 venture capital companies that we've invested in, and ranging in percentages. You really want, I mean, I made an investment in Employment Hero, but that was fairly late. So we've only got a tiny bit in them, really. And then ranging to some other entities, we've got like 60%. And yeah, it's an evolving strategy. We're sitting back a little bit at the moment, just taking stock of what we've done and reviewing it, reviewing the whole process, and then just going back to what we think is the right allocation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So previous to your sort of current pause, given where markets are and sentiment, were you going after specific sectors or stages?
So look, always tech. So always tech, and we somehow gravitated a little bit towards IoT. So a
Yep.
bit of
Interesting.
hardware with the SaaS play, and a few of those have been engineering based and mining, which is a little bit of my
Yeah.
background as well.
Yeah.
Um, we haven't really done a lot in fintech, and I think, and the reason for that is because if I'd wanted to stay in fintech, I probably wouldn't have sold. So
Yeah.
it
Okay.
was all, yeah. So that's probably why we didn't. Because a lot of people have said to us, "Why don't you just concentrate on fintech?" And oh well, if I'd wanted to do that, I would have stayed. I would never have sold the business. Yeah.
And then can you tell
Mm.
us a little bit more about the family office? Like how many people in there? When did it form? How do you split responsibilities? How do you we can dive in a bit deeper after that.
Yeah. So when did it form? I think we formed. Must have been. I first experimented with the multifamily office, and it didn't really work for me. I wasn't getting the right reporting that I wanted. It wasn't um, customized or tailored enough for
Yeah.
me. Quite. As probably as an engineer, I like numbers and I like detail. So I wasn't getting the detail I wanted. So that's when I thought I'll do this myself. We've now got about six in the family office, I think.
All right.
So we've got a portfolio, so basically the CEO of the office, and then we've got a couple of analysts, and we've got like one entrepreneur in residence. So, and so the idea of that person is to help some of our portfolio companies and just help them along. And whether he's mainly digital marketing and AI type and tech focused. So he helps them with that. Got another person who's sales marketing, and she also helps me with a bit of executive assistant work. Yeah.
Okay. So sounds like it's almost the sort of venture studio type setup where there's people that can dive in and go pretty hands-on into the businesses. Do you generally try and get something where you can have quite an influence or participation in the companies you're backing?
We do like that, yeah.
Yeah.
But there is someone like Employment Hero, for example, we're never going to do that. But we do to have business where we're a little bit more hands-on, and we can hopefully guide them to a better result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what about on the deal flow front as well? Where are you getting that? Obviously, everyone's got these incredible networks out there.
Yeah,
What actually makes it through? What's the process for getting through the funnel and getting closer to an
yeah.
investment decision?
So we have a process where so we have like an initial screen, like a go no go screen. So they've got to get through that quite quick initial screen. Then once they get through that, then we do a deep dive, and the couple of analysts that we've got in the portfolio manager will write up a paper on it. So we'll go pretty detailed into it, and then we have an investment committee. So then we'll make a decision at an investment committee level.
Yeah. Is that monthly cadence, or you can spin them up pretty quickly as needed?
We can spin them up pretty quick. Yeah,
Yeah.
like we can. Yeah, but I think the investment committee meets fortnightly.
Okay.
Yeah,
And what are some of the things on the no-go list?
the no go. There's lots on the no go.
Okay.
The first thing I look for is missionary versus mercenary. So I look for someone who's solving a problem.
Yeah.
So I've got, and I like to, so I generally steer towards someone who's been in an industry, they've seen something that they don't like, that you're going, why are people doing something like this for? And
Yeah.
then they're solving a problem, but then you've got to go, okay, then what's the size of that total? So how many people is he solving that problem for? So what's the size of that market? And I think when you look at that size, a lot of people, I think one thing we've learned that we really dive into is the size of that market, but it's that market is actually, it's whoever the customer is actually pulling their wallet out and paying you.
Yep.
So that's the customer, and how many of them are there? So sometimes you see these estimates of this addressable market, and it's might be like in mining, for example, got one where there's X dollars worth of mining equipment in the world. And we're going, no, well, hang on, that's not your market. Your market's actually in this case, it was like diesel fitters who were using a tool to service the equipment on. So it's how many of these diesel fitters are there, and then how many kits per diesel fitter was like 1 per 4. So it's a crew. So it's okay, how many crews are there? And that's your total addressable market, not the total value of machines. So that's an example. We see that a fair bit, where you've got to really dive down into who is actually that customer who's
Yeah.
going to pull their money out of their wallet and give it to you.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing in business, is actually getting customers to pay you for your product or service.
Yeah, totally. And knowing who the person is who makes that decisions with the purse strings too.
And that's a big one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we go, so what is the size? How many of those people are there? And how willing would they be to part with their money for your product or service? That's probably
Yeah.
a big thing that we look at.
Yeah. And so definitely a lot of around like the market opportunity in that person. How do you test like the actual founder or founding team with regards to them being the right person to solve the problem they've identified? What sort of markers?
That's a really hard one. It's like an interview. You can interview someone, they interview fantastically, and like 3 months down the track, you go, what the fuck? So it's hard, but I think I go back to the first point, which is, are they solving? Are they missionary?
Yep.
And if they're really, so are they passionate about solving a problem? Because our idea, my idea as well, like for Easy Debit, I solved a problem, and I was passionate about solving the problem. And for me, it's the money will follow you. So anyone who's going, I'm here to make a unicorn, you go, yeah, see you next.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't work like that. Because you've got to in order to get staff to rally around, so people have to work for you. So in order to get people to work for you, you've got to have a cause that someone can identify with to rally around you, so that everyone's working in the same direction. And if the cause is to make you a unicorn, that's sorry, no one will relate to that. So and then the other thing that we do now is that we have have you heard of Ray Dalio?
Yep.
Yeah, so he's got this
One of his books
personality.
back there.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I really have a lot of respect for him. So he has this personality profile
Oh
testing.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we use that. Do you use that?
Ah, nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so all of our founders have to be personality profiled.
Okay.
And then we actually start to we review, depending on ones that are going well, not so well. We actually we're reviewing, we're constantly reviewing, and we're going, is there any common characteristic here in the ones that are succeeding or failing?
Yeah. Okay. And look at your data and review that, and
Yeah.
we can improve. Yeah.
It's just things to look for. So if you look at that test and you go, hang on, there's a couple of things here in this test that the ones who are failing have all scored low in this, then we go, and that's a bit of a red flag for us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Well, you know, particularly after you've done it for a few years, right? And you can,
Yeah.
particularly in the venture category where it's generally pretty long hold periods,
Yeah.
you don't get that feedback as quick as you'd like sometimes. So you've been doing it probably close to 10 years now. So it's good to hear some of your learnings over the years.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely one of them. Yeah.
So shift, is there anything you wish founders knew about investors?
Good question. Founders knew about it. So look, I think you've got to treat it. And so basically, as a founder, you're selling part of your business, and so you bring in an investors really as a shareholder in your business, so they are along for the ride. So I think there's got to be some collaboration with them, and they've got to be prepared to work with. Got to be prepared to work with those investors who can offer something.
Yeah.
And
So slightly strategitic, if and where you can have the luxury of choosing your cap table.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
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 And is there anything you think people get wrong about early stage tech investing? If you're new in this space, any sort of lessons you'd like to pass on?
It's risky,
Yep.
right? So it's a high risk strategy. You do need to be prepared to lose some of your money. So it's quite risky, can be high reward. So it's high risk, high reward. So I guess that's probably the biggest thing is if you're looking at, if you're thinking just going to put my money in and get an 8 to 10% return, or if you think I'm just going to put my money in and get 25%, there's a good chance you could get zero.
Yeah. So you got to be prepared for
You got
that.
to be prepared to risk that money that you're putting in.
But you keep going back. So you're obviously a believer, or you're at least getting the returns that warrant the risk.
Yeah, look, and where everyone talks about the power laws, they put it, whatever it is, 100 bets and you get one unicorn or whatever. We don't really have that approach. We'd probably prefer to see some businesses that we think that are solving a problem. The addressable market's big enough for them to get an exit, whether it's a couple $100 million to $1 billion. And if we can get that, I think if we can get a few of those, we're probably a lot more happier than to just go and have a whole lot of little bets and hope one comes off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sensible. I'll probably just ask one more, which is talk to us about the now. What are some of the things you're working on at the moment that really excite you?
So look, I've dived back into my own little startup. That's probably one that excites me. So that's in the legal space called Easy Legal.
Okay.
Of course.
Yeah. Easy debit, easy legal.
That's right. So yeah, and that one's all about just disrupting the legal sector. So I've just been, over the years, I've just been sick of lawyers who basically pigs with their snouts in the trough. And so this is a client-based legal disruptor that hopefully, and our cause is everyone deserves access to justice. It's hopefully reducing the fees of what it costs to get to mediation or court by we're targeting like 80, 90% cheaper than what it would cost you to go through a standard lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what
So that's what we're working on.
What business model is that one?
Business model as in monetization.
Yeah. Where does it sit? Are you selling like to consumers or?
So it's a really interesting one because it's really hard to sell efficiency to lawyers because it's
Yeah.
So it's a really
get them to disrupt themselves, right? So.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So the way we're approaching that is probably a little bit similar to Easy Debit, where I'm using it for myself.
Yep.
And I've got my own law firm.
Okay.
And so we're looking at expanding that law firm because we think we've got a far lower cost base than the other law firm. So we're going to push that out. It's almost like self-serve law. And we're going to start in QCAT which is a really easy jurisdiction, or the tribunals. And then, so we'll probably push that out where it's quite self-serve, and it'll be transactional. So you might pay $100 to formulate your case and get it ready for QCAT, and another X dollars to lodge it, X dollars to do this. Yeah. But we haven't quite, it's an interesting one. We haven't quite worked out exactly the monetization of it yet. I do know there's a massive problem, and I know that's a problem that needs to be solved. I'm pretty confident that money's if we can solve the problem, the money will follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Oh, good to hear you're back on the tools. Mick, so nice to chat to you today on sharing your story. Great to hear like the early days, pre-Easy Debit even.
Yeah.
Get a bit of an insight into the past 10 years of venture investing. So thank you for sharing your story.
You. Lovely to speak to you, and thank you for the
So
opportunity. Okay.